Michael Porter Jr. is in the news. Of course, he won an NBA championship with the Denver Nuggets. And, remember his brother, Jonte Porter, has been accused of, I don't think he's been found guilty of, he's been accused of maybe not throwing games, but throwing his own stats on these prop bets, right, for his own personal stat line. So there were two things that he said that jumped out to me, and this was in a podcast recently, right? It was in a podcast recently. This is the Doug Gottlieb Show here on Fox Sports Radio. He said this about his own personal vices.
Everybody has different things that they struggle with. That can go from people that struggle with alcohol, people that struggle with drugs. My brother, for example, struggled with gambling. My vice has always come in the form of women. And when I'm far from God and I'm not in my word, I'm not praying, I'm not prioritizing him, that seems to be the place that the devil gets me, is in the space of women. My brother, Jonte, he never seemed to struggle with that vice. I never struggled with the gambling addiction. I never struggled with that vice. God gave me a lot of money because maybe he figured I could handle it and not, lose myself in that area. And maybe Jonte, he wasn't blessed with tons of money because he struggled with that area of the idolization of money,
He also went on to say that, hey, if I could make my buddies $10,000, right? That, we're here's the thing about Michael Porter Jr. And I actually, I don't know him well. I know his dad some, and the family is great, but they're super tight, and the stories go that he wasn't allowed to have sleepovers, right? Because you don't know what's going on in somebody else's home. And super, super religious and super, super sheltered. Now, Tim Tebow seems to have come out fine, yet he was homeschooled and super religious and super sheltered, but seems to be more than a productive member of society. I think he actually does some amazing stuff. You talk about Tebow and things he's done even after he's played. And this is not an attack on Christianity, on Judaism, any sort of Jehovah's Witness, where, you don't celebrate anything, or Mormonism. But it is the thought of, if you deny kids the ability to do normal kid things, they're going to be forced to figure those things out when they get to college, when they become adults. And women as a vice, there's a line out the door, right? How many of you guys have been staring at your social media because all these sorority girls are scantily dressed and they're doing dances to celebrate Rush, which, by the way, just so we're aware, the high level Rush chicks, they're really annoying. You came to school to get an MRS degree. We are well aware. Anyway, my first thought to my mind is, again, I'm not going to tell anybody how to raise their kids. And we did not raise our kids to be super religious, to be more spiritual, but very rarely did they step foot in temple, and even more rare did they step foot in church. Their mom was Baptist, their dad was Jewish. And if I could go back and do it again, I don't know if I would have forced religion, but I think it would have made it more part of what our family does, right? Once a month we go to temple, once a month we go to church, every other month or something like that. Because there's nothing wrong with whatever your path is to God, whatever, it can bring great balance to you. But when you maybe overindulge or you overprotect, then it's simply a case of they don't know how to deal with it, right? Don't know how to deal with it. And, even Michael Porter saying, and do we have that quote where he said, hey, you give me $10,000 and I can make you guys all $10,000. Yeah, there's cursing in it, so we'll not bleep it out. Yeah, we know. You can make a lot of money selling drugs. You can't do that. You can make, and you're like, well, drugs is not gambling. Like, okay, but gambling does have a certain kind of drug addictive element to it. And, oh, yeah, by the way, it's against the law. Rightly so. Why is it against the law? Well, because if you can control your stats just for your boys for one game, that makes those games illegitimate. And once they become illegitimate, now it crosses over into entertainment, much like the WWE, where that's why I've never been like, well, he's a world champion. Well, somebody wrote in the script he's a world champion. There's nothing really achieved in that. Anyway, I just, again, I'm not telling you how to raise your kids. And if you've ever spent time around Michael Porter Jr., like he's a really nice guy. You know, he's a really nice guy. They're very well thought out, very well spoken. And he admits, you know, women is his vice. Well, would it be his vice if he had a more, I don't want to say normal, what's the mainstream? Is that that's the term, right? Or more mainstream high school existence where you have to, and we do this with college basketball, with basketball players all the time, right? Guys go to these prep schools and they live in like a basketball house and they take class with just themselves. And then they go to college and we try and make our guys go to in-person classes as much as possible, but they do more and more where they're just in the facility. They're just in our locker room and in the gym. And they're like, you want them to go out and be people and, you know, within reason, make the reasonable college mistakes of relationships and, you know, having a budget and learning what to spend, what not to spend. Instead, we put them in a bubble. And when they become adults and you let them out of the bubble, they don't know how to deal with it. I see you nodding your head.
You're preaching to the choir, and a couple of things have exacerbated that for this current generation, because my kids are much younger than your kids. Number one, the pandemic. Number two, the iPads. It's a constant struggle for us as parents to get them away from their iPads.
Would you say, I'm sorry, I was looking at my phone.
Precisely. And ironically, I was too. I was on Venmo coming up with creative descriptions, but that's another story. Because in their iPads, they have all these online real life worlds, and they're like more well-versed in these simulated worlds than in real life, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So it's a constant struggle to keep them away, because when you and I were growing up, we played outside all day, all weekend. We roamed the neighborhood going from sport to sport, and kids just play differently these days, meaning they don't play that way anymore because of a combination of factors.
Yeah, no, you got to set up a play date.
Right? Yes.
Got to set up a play date, right? And then most of the play is like on a sports team, right? And they don't play the sport outside of playing the sport with a uniform.
And they don't learn how to referee the games themselves and settle disputes themselves, because there's no like pickup ball among kids hardly anymore.
No. So I'm not telling you that the Porters raised heathens. Okay, this is not me saying that. I'm just saying that that extremes on either side, I think we would all say, like, hey, if you can avoid those. And by extremes, it's like the kid that had to get up in the morning and cook breakfast for his family, for his little brother, and make sure he went to school, and he came home and he was the dad of the house because the parents were out of the house, or maybe there's only one parent in the house, or maybe it was abusive, or maybe they just kind of lived on their own. Like, that's one extreme to where they don't have the support system needed. The other extreme is to where you bubble them. They don't have sleepovers. They're not allowed to do that stuff because you don't know what happens to those sleepovers. And like, yeah, I mean, first naked girl I ever saw, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, right? The cool kid just moved in down the street, got to have a sleepover. Like, what is this? We get to watch naked girls and nobody covers my eyes when we're watching it? Like, this is cool. Stuff happens at sleepovers. It's the everything in moderation sort of argument. Everything in moderation.